thank you everybody for coming. I have a lot of thoughts on this election, and there's so much to say. There's a lot of talk about freedom these days in our live free or die state, especially from free staters, those libertarians on steroids who moved here to impose their view of freedom on our state. And it's their view of freedom which is taking over the Republican Party here, along with election deniers and anti-government Republicans. And honestly, it didn't used to be this way, but it sure is now. So what is the current Republican view of freedom and the path thereto? Speaking like a lawyer. Undermining public education, undermining public health, undermining women's reproductive rights and personal autonomy, undermining First Amendment rights, undermining our voting rights, and undermining our right to live free of gun violence. I ask you, what kind of vision of freedom is that? Democracy thrives with terrific public education, expanded voting rights, and freedom of speech. So you tell me, should our teachers have to look over their shoulders, worrying about being reported to the government for teaching our country's history, a history that includes racism? The Republicans passed the divisive concepts legislation by stuffing it into the ballot, and duly it was signed by this governor. Should our families have to worry about guns when they drop their children off at school? You know, federal law prohibits guns in schools, but this governor and these Republicans passed a bill that forbids state enforcement of those federal safety laws. They killed Democratic efforts to get safer schools requiring state enforcement of gun prohibition in school, and they've killed bills for universal background checks. And they have ensured that we can't even take local action to prohibit guns in our polling places, schools, you name it. Where do we turn? To Democrats, obviously. In fact, I just have to quote these things because it's hard to believe. The powerful Free State House Majority Leader, who is the leader of the House Republicans, Jason Osborne, tweeted in June, "Here's a common sense gun safety reform, yearly, age-appropriate firearms training in school at every grade level." Yes, that is a direct quote. And I wonder, does that include kindergarten or pre-K? Should our hard-earned tax dollars pour out to private schools with no guardrails on how it's spent and no supports for special needs kids? But maybe he'd like to include gun training. This leaves less funding for our schools, and make no mistake, Republican policies at the state level ensure that our property taxes go up. Phoebe Casey is here. She can testify to this. It's well known that New Hampshire is dead last nationally in state support for public schools. That is an embarrassment. Should our hospitals and businesses be banned from requiring COVID vaccinations for their employees to ensure public health? I'm thinking of our president of the New London Hospital, Tom Mannion here. Did you know, again, I'm not kidding, that the New Hampshire House chair of the Finance Committee was convinced that the vaccines contained microchips and little creatures to control our minds, that he shared with the Finance Committee and the Executive Council? I kid thee not. How can this be possible? Disbelief in science slowed down approval of federal funds for state vaccination efforts. Should our women have to be close to death to get abortion care after 24 weeks and our doctors criminalized for providing it? A Class B felony and heavy fines for those doctors who performed an abortion as judged by a government official if that official decided the woman wasn't close enough to death to be saved by an abortion. This is New Hampshire law now. If Republicans stay in power, this will only get worse. They've consistently supported severe restrictions on abortions and refused to support a bill ensuring abortion rights that the Democrats put forth and I also co-sponsored. They even refused to support family planning dollars from going to clinics. Now I tell you, if you're anti-abortion, why would you not fund contraceptive care? I do not get it. I really don't. Should election deniers be allowed to gaslight their way into restricting our voting rights? What's wrong with being able to vote an absentee ballot if you aren't sick or out of town? What if you have to work? What if you have to take care of your husband who has Alzheimer's? What about gerrymandering? Jason Osborne, the current majority leader who I quoted previously, who I have to tell you is sure to stay in power if the Republicans keep control of the majority in the New Hampshire House, had this to say in a tweet. Again, I quote, "Failure to pass a properly gerrymandered congressional map will be an embarrassment to New Hampshire Republicans for the next decade." They want them gerrymandered. Thank goodness the court stepped in, but our state Senate and executive councils remained left in place by a state court that believed it had no right to intervene. The governor vetoed an independent redistricting commission that would have ensured fair voting districts. I ask you, how does any of this protect our democracy? How does this protect our freedom? It really shakes me to the core. These are basic rights and we must do better. We have to vote blue up and down the ballot or the trajectory the state is on will only get worse, especially when our Supreme Court, now packed with originalist conservative judges, increasingly refuses to protect our basic rights and leaves it to the states. Please vote for Democrats, vote for our freedoms and the future of our state. Let's get out there and support our kids, our family, and our public health. And yes, our environment. I do believe in climate change. I do love clean water and air, and I really love recycling. Let's get out there, support public education and our public heart and our precious, hardworking, committed teachers. Let's get out there and promote gun safety to stop this inexcusable gun violence. Let's please get out there and support women's reproductive rights and equality for all. Please vote to protect our voting rights. Please get out there and please let's be the bears that those libertarians walk into. Thank you very much and go Democrats.